Today on Resource Review, we're evaluating 3 resources that offer either creative or practical help in teaching secondary design and technology. They are a vacuum press for moulding wood.
So basically we'll leave that going with the compressor on for about half an hour, 45 minutes.
A DVD-ROM of D&T lessons and assessment tools.
The How Truss was originally designed to combine diagonal timber compression members and vertical iron rod tension members.
And a range of product analysis boxes. But will they meet our panel's exacting standards? Find out in a moment on Resource Review. Recommending today's resources is Aileen White. Aileen is Assistant Head Teacher at the Thomas Aveling School in Rochester and a D&T writer and trainer for the Specialist Schools and Academies Trust. Joining Aileen on the panel we have David Spendlove, lecturer and researcher in Design and Technology Education at the University of Manchester, and John Myerson, a freelance Design and Technology Education consultant. Welcome to you all. Thanks for coming. Aileen, an action-packed table for us this time. Your first resource is called the bag press. We've got some components of the kit here. Can you explain this resource to us, what it does and why you like it?
It's actually a manufacturing resource that you can't see here. These are some of the pieces of equipment that you use with it, and this is a product that's been made using the product. And basically it's a vacuum that you link to a bag, and then you can veneer wood around a mould inside the bag, and while the air is then sucked out of the bag and helps the veneer to stick in curvaceous shapes. So it gives you the opportunity to actually make quite organic, fluid, curvy shaped products rather than very square shaped products.
OK, well thank you very much. Before we discuss the bag press any further, let's have a look at it in action. We visited teacher Steve Sadler at East Barnet School in Hertfordshire, and let's see if he was impressed by it.
In my lesson this morning I was simply demonstrating the effectiveness of the bag press and how quickly you can actually produce a market viable product. In this case the example was a small children's chair. You have a mould which is made from foam, and it could be pretty much any shape, as long as it's obviously not too intricate. In the case of our mould it was simply like a hill shaped piece. We place our mould inside the bag along with our strips of veneered wood, which will glue together just by using normal PVA woodwork glue. We'll then seal that bag and make sure that it's completely airtight. The compressor will suck all the air out of that bag, and eventually what will happen is that the actual bag will press tight over our mould and form the given shape that the student has designed. Yeah, good. Well, I'm happy with that. So basically we'll leave that going with the compressor on for about half an hour, 45 minutes. They can literally design anything really that they want, and any intricate shapes or curves that they'd like to create out of wood that would normally be very difficult and time consuming to make using typical MDF. By using the bag press system and simple foam, which is very cheap to get hold of, they can actually create all kinds of curves and wonderful creations with it. So I think it's very effective. It's definitely a product that children can use perfectly safely within a workshop environment, and I'd recommend it even for primary schools as well. Excellent value for money. Yeah, I'd definitely recommend it for any school. And there we go. In fact, that's actually come out perfect. There you go. So there's our chair design.
Well, Aileen, a glowing review from our teacher there. But I sort of feel that it isn't that cheap a resource. And in this day and age when pupils are perhaps expecting something a little bit more fancy, perhaps computerised, the bag press is actually offering something quite basic to schools.
Yeah, I think the outcomes that are produced may look simple and basic, and the process is basic, but actually I think in a way that's what's nice about it. What you're actually getting is quite a simple organic shaped form like this clock, and yet it's actually beautiful quality that's been made, and it's been made quickly and simply. And what we felt as well was that it was value for money because we could use it right the way through, right from the beginning of our students arriving in year 7. We could even use it with year 6 transition work, right through to our sixth formers who might be designing chairs or something like we saw on the video. As well, what I liked was that the company actually supports schools in using this by supplying veneer, by supplying the styrofoam you need for moulds. They even do a mould pack that you can buy that has the basic shape moulds for the types of things they suggest you could make.
All right, well, let's see what the panel think. David, coming to you first, what do you think of the bag press?
I think people have to be careful that it doesn't just become a standard project that children just get recycled through over and over and over again. And I think if children are going to be doing bespoke designs, then that's fine. But I do get concerned when people start churning out the same thing over and over again using the same process. But it is a bit of a dying art, laminating, and I suppose as an introduction to the process, it's good.
All right, well, John, what do you think of the bag press as a resource for the classroom?
Well, I really think it's nice to get away from the square box made out of wood, and to encourage students to go push the boat out a little and do something different. In fact, I think you could incorporate 3D CAD design into the project quite easily, because it's the sort of thing that could be used to help the students to look at different shapes.
Well, thank you very much. Now let's move on to Aileen's second choice of resource, and this is the Birchfield Mechanisms and Structures DVD-ROM. Aileen, explain this resource to us, and again, what makes it stand out for you?
We found that we needed to teach about mechanisms and structures all through the curriculum in design and technology. So what I liked about this DVD-ROM was that it was so visual. It has a number of animations that we can use with the students alongside other visual aids, so that we have a number of different media that we use to actually get the idea across of what are these mechanisms and what is it about structures and the techniques within structures that can help them in their own product designing.
All right, thank you very much. We asked AST Mary Southall, who's currently assigned to Phoenix High School in West London, to tell us what she thought of the Birchfield Mechanisms and Structures DVD.
Today I've looked at Birchfield lesson kits. The topics I've looked at primarily are resistant materials within design and technology, product design and graphics, and textiles, so there's no food. There is some mechanisms and structures in there. Mechanisms and structures is a difficult one to teach, but within here they give you a series of lessons explaining what strength is and ductility and all the key areas. Very animated, so most of them have videos, most of them have examples of, I don't know, a bridge under stress. So quite interesting. I think the photo banks are good for starters, and I think could be used as endings to lessons just to check the learning. I also think that it would be good for revision. I don't particularly think it's a lesson in itself. I think it gets over some of the key elements really well within some of the more difficult areas to teach within design and technology. And I think it does it in a way that allows the student to learn at their own pace. I do think it takes quite a long time to get your head around it and what the potentials of it are, and I don't know whether a lot of teachers would invest in it in that amount of time. My biggest concern with the package is that it wouldn't enhance learning. It would just be something that the cover teacher uses to keep the kids quiet, and that's my biggest concern. I have used it with the younger ones, so year 7, who loved it, but it's aimed at 14 to 18 year olds, and I think some of the animations and some of the sort of the animations I think sometimes are quite patronising. Also, the subject should be cutting edge design, and I'm not quite sure that the slides that you see really sort of advocate that. You know, it's quite immature and quite basic graphics. There's loads of stuff in there that you could go over in terms of key learning for GCSE, so I would use it in my lessons.
Well, Aileen, quite an in-depth analysis there from our AST Mary. A few negative points. Firstly, she felt that some of the graphics, some of the design quality of the visuals was perhaps a little basic, even a little patronising to students of design and technology. How would you counter that?
I've always found with resources you'll get some bits that you like and some bits you don't. And that's the same with, it could be the same with this, but it's actually the same with any resource. What I liked about this was that you could actually pick and choose which parts of it you wanted to use. So you can dip in and out of it. So if you felt a certain part was patronising or inappropriate for a certain group, you can do that if you want to.
OK, thank you. Over here on the panel, John, what are your thoughts?
Well, I too had my reservations about this resource. Yes, it was nice to be able to create your own lessons and pick out and choose which bits you wanted, but I found there were bits missing. I wanted to see some detail that wasn't there. For example, I wanted to see a bit more on why would you use a pulley rather than a gear wheel, for example, and that was missing.
So, well, let's come back to you, Aileen. Possibly a bit patchy in its coverage.
Right. I think that's probably a fair point if you were using it solely. But I'd make the point that I don't think one resource can cover everything, and I don't think you can sit students in front of it and leave them like the AST was suggesting some teachers might be tempted to do.
Yes, there's a danger there. David, what were your thoughts?
I think the points that Mary made were spot on in that the learning isn't paramount in it and is somewhat dislocated from the activities inside it. I think also the fact that it's not necessarily intuitive, and it does make some grand claims about what it can offer, and I don't think it quite matches that. I've got some difficulties with it.
OK, well, let's move on now to Aileen's third choice of resource, and this is something a little bit different. Aileen, I'm going to let you describe this one. We've got a lot of it on the table. What is this third resource?
This resource is from the Specialist Schools and Academies Trust, and it's their product analysis boxes. And these products come in a range of 5 boxes, and there are 10 sets of these in different LEAs around the country. And the boxes have a whole range of creative designed products that have been bought already that schools can loan out and use with their students to help develop product analysis skills.
Well, David, assuming your school can get their hands on one of the few sets around the country, what do you think of this resource?
I think it's fantastic. I think you've highlighted the problem that there's 4,000 secondary schools, so there's going to be some waiting list for this. But it is an excellent resource. My only sort of criticism was that some of the support material that went with it wasn't as strong as I thought it should be. But overall, I think it's an excellent resource for schools.
OK, John, just quickly, what were your thoughts on it? What about the range of goods that the schools are getting their hands on?
I think it's something that schools can build up themselves gradually. Look at the list and think, yeah, there's some really good stuff there.
What about it going out of date?
I think, as you can see from these examples, some of them are quite iconic in their style, and therefore they're not going to go out of date so much. But as John said, I would imagine schools developing their own collections, and therefore it will be the start of something.
Well, thank you all very much. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for today. But just to recap, the 3 resources that we looked at were the vacuum press from Bag Press, Lesson Kit for Design and Technology DVD-ROM from Birchfield Interactive plc, and the Made Smart product boxes compiled by the Specialist Schools and Academies Trust. For more information about all of the resources that we've been talking about, go to our website. It's teachers.tv/resource review, or if you want to, email us resourcereview@teachers.tv. Very big thank you to our panel for today, to Aileen, to David and to John. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on Resource Review. Bye-bye.